Welcome to this session on sustainability in business management with a special focus on marketing. Today, when we are looking at businesses and when we look at the state of equilibrium that we have been able to strike with Mother Nature, it forces us to think how we should be actually doing business while ensuring that we do not throw the equilibrium off balance. Multitudes of businesses in the world, the way they have been doing their businesses across all industries, very less or no amount of attention has been paid to the kind of adverse impacts that businesses have had on the environment. And that's why it's important to think about sustainability in business management and actually build a strategy to work upon, so that whatever has been lost can be regained and maintain the status quo for all times to come, for this generation as well as the next and all the other coming generations. What we are going to talk about broadly are sustainable fashion, organic products, sustainable consumption, rural marketing, and social marketing. So first we'll talk about sustainable fashion. It is also called eco-fashion. It's a part of the growing design philosophy and trend of sustainability, the goal of which is to create a system which can be supported indefinitely in terms of human impact on the environment and social responsibility. So essentially what we're saying is that the philosophy behind creating any design, creating any product or service, one has to keep in mind the repercussions or the fallouts that the product may have on the society or on the business or on the environment. And keeping that in mind, we go ahead with the designing of the products and then producing them in a sustainable way, and then the consumers using the product again in a responsible manner and then disposing it off in such a way that these products go back into the nature without causing any harm to the nature. It can be seen as an alternative trend against fast fashion. So sustainable fashion is the opposite of fast fashion. Fast fashion has been about staying in trend, and it has been about being the most fashionable and changing fashion within every 2 weeks, as propounded by Zara. And fast fashion has actually fueled the habit of using and throwing fashion even before people realize the advent of fashion. And fast fashion has led to so much of landfill and has led to so much of pollution because of textile products. If we talk about the origin, sustainable fashion, it came into its being somewhere around 1940s during World War II, where rationing policy came into picture because all the resources were being employed into the war. So because of the rationing policy, there was lesser amount of money which was available for the domestic markets. There was lesser amount of money and resources available for the domestic activities, and therefore the 1940s saw cinched waist, which is lesser waist, box cut and shortening of skirts, because these garments required less fabric, and there was and the design of the skirts was a little boxy, which led to lesser waste of leftover fabric. So that was the first time when sustainability had come into picture. Of course, the word did not come into play at that point of time. Sustainable fashion came into prominence in the late 1980s and early 1990s. That was the point of time when the prominent designers started realizing the adverse impact that textile industry and fashion industry was having on the environment. And of course, there were a lot of researchers by various research agencies which found that a lot of pollution was happening because of textile processing and because of the textile products which were, after the usage by the consumer, it was ending up in the landfills, and these landfills were acting like ticking time bomb. Over a period of time, the waste textile material was reacting with the soil and giving rise to very complex compounds which was not good for nature. And roughly that was the point of time when Patagonia, one of the fashion brands, and Esprit, a German brand, they brought sustainability, they integrated sustainability into their businesses, and they were the pioneers in the fashion trade to embrace sustainability. The key issue that both these brands detected by way of undertaking research was the exponential growth in consumption. People were consuming a lot, and the brands, they wanted exponential growth. These were the two major culprits which were leading towards inordinate amount of landfill and inordinate amount of pressure on the natural resources to produce more, and because people wanted to consume more. And then because of such high consumption, it was also leading to the rise of the landfills at a very fast, alarming rate. Now, the goal of sustainable fashion, there are many goals, and we're going to talk about some of the goals. One goal is to increase the value of the local production and products. Why local production? Because something is made locally, then it would travel a very less amount of distance to reach the consumer. If it is not a local production, it means every product which is being bought by a consumer, the product is shipped from a far off place, and which is therefore adding a lot to the carbon footprint. So therefore the first goal is to increase the value of local production and products. Second is prolong life cycle of materials. Fast fashion has very short life cycle. Classic fashions have long life cycles. So meaning to say that any product which hits the market stays with the consumer for a longer period of time, and therefore there is lesser amount of requirement in the market, because of which there is lesser amount of pressure on the natural resources. The third goal is increase the value of timeless garments, meaning to say that today it is truly believed that the fashion trade should be making classic garments, timeless garments, made of good material and made with utmost care and sold at a premium, and customers buy it at a great price and they use it for a longer period of time because it is timeless. It has been designed in such a manner that it will not go out of fashion for a considerable amount of time. The fourth goal, of course, is to reduce the amount of waste. The waste should be tried to kept at bare minimum, not to be wasteful, to be more efficient in terms of usage of the raw material. And of course, by way of undertaking all such activities, the next goal also is to reduce the harm to the environment. So the more we consume, the more wastage we create, the shorter the life cycle of materials, or the more fast fashion that we use, or if we go ahead with the mechanism of buying from far off places in the world and not creating local production sites, all of these are going to reduce the all of these are going to harm the environment more. And last but not the least, one of the goal is to educate people to practice environmentally friendly consumption, to become green consumers. At the end of the day, the market says that, the industry people say that, or the brands or the retailers say that because consumers are consuming and they want certain type of product, that's why we are producing. Now what we're saying here is that it is because markets are driven by the customer demand. It is more pertinent to educate the people, to educate the consumers, to practice environmentally friendly consumption, become green consumer, and demand for such products which are sustainable. That is the only way to force the brands and other companies to start making sustainable products. There is no other way to force these brands. So it is only the consumer who can force these brands to change their ways of working, change their methods of production, so that they start producing sustainable products. Now, if you compare sustainable fashion with fast fashion, sustainable fashion resists fast fashion. It goes exactly in the opposite direction to what fast fashion, to the direction in which fast fashion moves. Now, sustainable fashion is about anti-consumption, consuming less, alternative consumption, use a product in many different ways, eco-consumption, consuming such products which are good for the environment, for the ecology, and green consumption, use such products which are made in green manners, using more renewable, friendly methods. Ethical consumption, consuming such products which have been made ethically, let's say for example, products being made uh, by such factories which pay the valid wages to their laborers, and political consumption, consuming such products which are politically correct. Characteristics of sustainable fashion, it matches the philosophies of slow fashion. Slow fashion actually is opposite of fast fashion, and slow fashion talks about propounds the virtues of using a product for a longer period of time and embracing such designs which are more classic in nature rather than going for very showy products which are in fashion for a very small period of time. So sustainable fashion encourages the consumers to buy vintage clothes, redesign old clothes instead of discarding them, shopping from smaller producers so that smaller producers also are supported, not just the big giants like H&M and Zara and Walmart and Bloomingdale's and Macy's, JCPenney, etc. It is also about making clothes and accessories at home. Make it yourself so that we don't add to the carbon footprint when we are buying from the mass bulk producers. And then one more thing that can be done is buying such garments that last longer. So by way of doing all these things, we are actually helping fashion, actually using fashion which is sustainable, so to say. So now we would look at the definition of sustainable fashion. A fashion production which is locally embedded, slow in terms of production cycles, with a quantity of produced goods that corresponds to demand and without overproduction. It utilizes eco-friendly and qualitative materials, yet it is not cheap. The idea being to stimulate prolonged use of the clothing. So whatever we have discussed as of now, all of that has been so beautifully encapsulated in this definition of buying products from the local sellers, such products which are classic in nature, have longer production cycles, does not become outdated easily, and produce only as much that is required by the markets, not overproduce, use eco-friendly methods, use good quality materials, sell at premium prices, and promote prolonged use of the clothing, promote slow fashion. That's the most beautiful definition of sustainable fashion. It is also very important to talk about ethics when we are talking about sustainable fashion. The clothing industry has an adverse impact on the environment, and we have discussed this in numerous times. Globalization and consumerism have led to the production of clothing at very low prices, and which has led to consumerism, where consumers have started considering clothing, this fast fashion clothing, to be disposable. And because of this, what has happened is that people buy and throw fashion. Ultimately, what we are doing is we are adding to the landfill at a very fast pace. Now, fast fashion adds to pollution, generates potential environmental and occupational hazards. if we talk about occupational hazards, the factories which are making fast fashion and selling at very low prices, these factories, there's no way these factories can pay the respectable wages to its workers. For example, Chinese apparel workers, they make as little as 12 to 18 cents per hour. These are less even by Indian standards. Now, because of globalization, there is fierce global competition in the garment industry. And because of this competition, it translates into poor working conditions for many laborers in developing nations. Because you have to give competitive prices, you don't invest in the infrastructure, and because of which the working condition is very poor, and the garment workers, they have to work in those poor conditions just because the factory has to provide very cheap garments to the developed nations. Of course, the more we talk, it's still going to be less. If we talk about the environmental hazards, textile and clothing are one of the biggest criminals who have damaged so much. They have caused damage to the environment. One of the factors is very high water usage. The processing of the textiles, the dyeing and printing, all of it uses a lot of water. That is one hazard. Second, pollution from chemical treatments used in dyeing, printing, other preparations. Once the chemicals have been used for the treatment, then the water which has been used to do the treatment along with the chemicals, the leftover liquid is simply let out into the environment. Disposal of large amounts of unsold clothing. And this is particularly characteristic of American and European markets, mostly Western European countries. Disposal of large amounts of unsold clothing, only around 20% of clothing is recycled or reused. So whatever unsold clothing goes back, only around 20% is recycled or reused. The rest are simply burnt or are simply thrown out as garbage, and which ultimately end up in the landfill deposits. Clothing industry uses a lot of water, adds to the woes of water scarcity, and at least 8,000 chemicals are used to turn raw materials into textiles, and 25% of the world's 25% of the world's pesticides are used to grow non-organic cotton. So when we say non-organic cotton, we are talking about usage of all the insecticides and pesticides, because of which we get a good yield of the cotton crop. But these insecticides and pesticides, they do irreversible harm to the soil. This causes irreversible damage to the people also, the people who are working in the cotton fields. And that is not acceptable. That should not be acceptable to us and to the society. So which means that if we want to create sustainable fashion, it can only happen by using sustainable materials. And when we are talking about sustainable material, there are some key questions that we need to ask. Some of the questions are: is the source of fiber renewable? Meaning to say, any source which is giving you the fiber, is it renewable? So meaning to say that if you are getting wool from the sheep, it is renewable because sheep is going to graze the grass, and then again the hair is going to grow, and we can get the wool indefinitely. So it is renewable. But if you talk about polyesters and nylon, which we get from petroleum, petroleum is non-renewable, and once it is used, it is gone. So the source of fiber is not renewable if you're talking about synthetic fibers. Now the second question that we need to ask is, what is the process used to turn raw fiber into a textile? So when we are processing the raw fiber to get textile, is that process sustainable? How much of electricity is it using, and how much of pollution, air pollution, sound pollution is it causing, or any other kinds of pollution? And what are the working conditions of the people producing the materials? Now this is important. Material is good or the methods are good, and if the working condition for the people is not good, that's not sustainability. Sustainability, if it is sustainable, it is good for the people who are working in the trade. It's good for the business, and it's good for the society, and it's good for the environment. So the working conditions have to be good. Otherwise, it would not qualify as sustainable. And fourth question, which is important, and it's a quantitative question. What is the material's total carbon footprint? Meaning to say that all processes today are measured in terms of carbon footprint. The more the carbon footprint, badder, worse it is. So what is the material's total carbon footprint? So if you are looking at, let's say, 3 types of material 1, 2, 3, the material which leads to the least amount of carbon footprint is the most preferred. More carbon footprint is bad, not acceptable, not preferable. Of course, there is another phenomenon, another concept of recycled fibers. Now, recycled fibers are made from scraps of fabric collected from clothing factories, which are processed back into short fibers for spinning into a new yarn. So, the virgin yarns, the virgin fibers are longer, but whatever is left over in the factories, it can be collected back, processed back into short fibers, and then again they can be spun into new yarn, and from the new yarn we can get new fabric, and then it can be used for converting into textile product or ready-made garments. And then we talk about upcycled fibers. Now this is really catching up. Upcycled fibers is the case when we are converting materials into something with greater value in a second life. And the case in point is Adidas shoes. What they are doing is that they are taking waste material, primarily polyesters, and then recycling it and making a product which is of more value than the product which was originally made with the polyester. So that is upcycling. Now, upcycling is a form of recycling. The upcycled fibers are made from materials that are not originally used to make fibers. So this includes fibers made of plastic. So plastic bottles, when used and thrown, plastic bottles are recycled, fibers are made out of it, denims are made. Levi's is one of the pioneer in this area, and they have made denims from these plastic bottles, and then Adidas has released a collection made from ocean plastic, all the plastic that has entered into the ocean, the plastic which have been used by the mankind and has been thrown mindlessly, which has ended up in the oceans. And then if we talk about the fish leather made from fish skins, this is again the case of upcycling, where the original raw material was made to create something, and once that product was made, used, and then was of no use, it was upcycled, meaning to say that it was converted into something of far more value than the original value. And then we have a interesting example here, the golden brown, the golden book gown. Now Ryan Jude Novellin created a ballroom gown constructed entirely from the pages of recycled and discarded children's books, known as the golden book gown, that proves that green fashion can provide as rich a fantasia as can be imagined, meaning to say that fashion can be responsible, and fashion has the capability to use the discarded materials and create something of far more value than the original product, which is contrary to the popular belief that once you have used a product, then anything that you make out of that product is going to be inferior to that original product. That is not the case, and that is what has been proved by this case, this example of the golden book gown. And I will talk about some of these designers, retailers and labels who have taken up their baby steps in the direction of sustainability. Eco couture designer Lucy Tamam uses airy silk, which is ahimsa or peace silk, and organic cotton to create her eco-friendly couture evening and bridal wear collections. Now, ahimsa silk is simply put, ahimsa silk is produced in a manner that the silkworms are not put in the boiling water and they are not killed. The silkworms are given the silkworms are let out of the cocoon. They are not killed. So that is ahimsa silk. And organic cotton is the method of growing cotton by not using any insecticide or pesticide, using only natural fertilizers. So Lucy Tamam uses ahimsa silk and organic cotton to create her eco-friendly couture evening and bridal wear collections. And there are other sustainable fashion labels which the researchers and the students are suggested to research upon. The other sustainable fashion labels include Elena Garcia, Nancy D, by Stamo, Outsider Fashion, Beyond Skin, Oliberte, Heteros, Darusso, K-Sky the label, and Eva Cassis. There are many, many more. Any researcher is free to explore and find out more such brands and labels who are taking significant steps in the direction of creating sustainable fashion. And then there is another brand by the name Boll and Branch. Boll is the cotton ball, the white ball that we see, which grows from the plant and the cotton is ripe. So the brand Boll and Branch make all of the bedding products from organic cotton, and have been certified by Fairtrade USA. Now, Fairtrade USA is one such organization which certifies various organizations. They certify the products, whether they have been made using organic products and whether the workers have been paid the fair wages. Another company, the Hemp Trading Company, is an ethically driven underground clothing label specializing in environmentally friendly, politically conscious streetwear made of hemp, bamboo, organic cotton, and other sustainable fabrics. Patagonia, that we talked about, a major retailer in casual wear and very famous, a hit amongst the youth. Patagonia has been selling fleece clothing made from post-consumer plastic soda bottles since 1993. They are one of the biggest players and the foremost players who started integrating sustainability into their products. They sell at high prices and they sell products made of recycled raw material. Another famous name, Stella McCartney, daughter of Sir Paul McCartney. Stella McCartney is a brand that pushes the agenda for sustainable fashion that is animal friendly and eco-friendly. Stella McCartney is very, very famous and has had created a lot of impact by embracing sustainability and giving a very clear and strong message to the fashion fraternity that sustainability is not a choice. It is not a luxury. It is mandatory. It has to be taken up by everyone. So Stella McCartney, she uses her name and her brand as a platform to push for a greener fashion industry. So her contribution has been significant in the last 2 decades. There is no certain stable model among the designers for how to be sustainable in practice. And the understanding of sustainability is always a process or a work in progress. So when we are talking about sustainability, it is not really clear in black and white as to what is sustainability and if you want to be sustainable, how to do it. So there is no certain stable model, and it's still a work in progress. Sustainability in terms of practice is continuously getting refined, and a lot of other aspects and a lot of other dimensions are getting added to the existing definition of sustainability and the methodology and the processes, etc. So that's how it is for now. And there are some companies and organizations which are working to combat clothing pollution, increase sustainable design opportunities, and increase the visibility of the sustainable fashion movement. For example, the National Association of Sustainable Fashion Designers, Red Carpet Green Dress, Undress Brisbane, Eco Age, Ecolux London, Fashion Takes Action, the Ethical Fashion Initiative, Trans-America Trading Company. These are some of these companies which are working in the area of sustainability, sustainable fashion, and they are combating cloth pollution, and they are trying to increase sustainable design opportunities and give a lot of visibility to the sustainable fashion movement. And then we come to a very tricky area, but something which the consumer must especially be aware of, and those are the controversies. This is something which is related to the consumers as well as the producers. There are different types of controversies, and we are going to talk about some of them. First one being materials controversy. Now, organic cotton by definition is fewer pesticides and lesser chemical fertilizers. So that's how organic cotton is, and that's how it should be. But less than 1% of the cotton that is being produced is organic. Meaning to say that the cotton producers have not really embraced the concept of organic cotton, and they have not switched from growing normal cotton to growing organic cotton. So that is something rather unfortunate, but not without reasons. Now the hurdles to the growth is cost of hand labor for hand weeding, because it has to be, the cotton has to be taken out by hand manually. So the cost of hand labor is high, and because of which the yield is reduced. So the cost becomes higher. And then this is something which is very, very bad on the part of the brands. The big brands like Zara, Nike, Forever 21, bestsellers, they don't give any commitment to the farmers. There is absence of fiber commitments from brands to farmers before planting seeds. So the farmers are planting the seed, they will grow the cotton, but the brands, they don't give any kind of commitment to these farmers, despite working with the farmers for more than for many decades. They don't give any fiber commitments, which they should, ethically speaking. The farmers have been growing the fiber for the brands, and brands don't take any responsibility towards the farmers, which is not correct, ethically speaking. Now, if you talk about bamboo fiber, it is cited as an absorber of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases are not good because they are the main reasons for the increase of the global temperatures. Now, bamboo fiber, it is cited as an absorber of greenhouse gases during its life cycle, grows quickly and plentifully without pesticides. So these are some of the best things about bamboo fiber. But conversion process of bamboo fiber to fabric is highly toxic, because it has to be, the bamboo has to be beaten into a pulp, and then from the pulp the fiber has to be, the chemical process has to be undertaken, and then the cellulose has to be extracted from it, and then fibers are made from it. So this entire process is highly toxic, involves a lot of chemicals. So at the end of the day, the fiber and the process both should be good for the environment, not just the product. Just because the product is good, great for the consumer, does not mean that it is actually good in all senses. The conversion process also has to be investigated, engaged in terms of whether it is good for the environment or not. So what should we do? Some of the line of action that we can think of is try not to make new materials unnecessarily. Instead, make recycled, reclaimed, just like reclaiming polyester from the ocean. Use the surplus. And you can use vintage fabric, all those old fabrics, which are arguably the most sustainable choice. These require no agriculture, there is no pressure on the agriculture, and no manufacturing is required. Now, another controversy that we have is second-hand controversy. Now, if you use second-hand clothes, it's a good thing. because it is going to reduce the pressure from the environment and then pressure on the producers. But trade in second-hand clothing in African countries decreases development of local industries. So if everyone started buying second-hand clothes, then what will happen to the local apparel manufacturing industry? What will they do? So while we look at one solution, we also have to see whether that solution is not the cause of any other bigger problem. So while coming up with solutions, one has to also look at the other stakeholders, whether they are getting impacted because of the proposed solution. Now, in the long run, as prices and quality of new clothing continue to decline, just like fast fashion, if the price and quality declines, the demand for used clothing will also diminish. Meaning to say that if you're buying something for $5, a new fabric, new garment, and a second-hand garment is for $2, and if the new garment, the cost of buying the new garment, it reduces from $5 to $3, then why would a person want to buy a used product for $2 when the new product is available for $3? So what we are saying here is that when the price of new clothing declines, it also leads to lesser demand for used clothing, and it is a fact. And then we come to marketing controversy, by far one of the worst things that could be done by these respectable, so-called respectable brands and companies. Now, this term greenwashing is the most hated word, should be hated. Now, greenwashing, it refers to fashion companies claiming that their products are environmentally friendly, when often they are not. There is not a single legal definition for marketing friendly words such as sustainable, green, or environmentally friendly. So because there is no clear definition, there is no single legal definition. So these brands, they go about it, they bend the rules, and they manipulate it in such a way that they claim that their products are green, their products are organic, and if they are if the product is investigated and if it is seen that they are not sustainable, then the brands claim that, as per our understanding, sustainability means this, and because we do things like this, and therefore we said that we are sustainable. So because the definition is loose, not strictly defined, the brands get away doing all kinds of wrong things and giving false impression to the people that they are sustainable, they are green, they are eco-friendly. And the case in point, the biggest case, is Hennes and Mauritz, H&M. They state in their advertisement, a men's green long sleeve shirt from H&M is made of 100% organic cotton. Now, how can something like a men's shirt, something that on an average takes about 20,000 liters of water to produce, how can that be sustainable? So because H&M plays on the definition and that part of the definition that we are using organic cotton. So you are telling the customer that your product is made of 100% organic cotton, but you are not telling them that this shirt made of 100% organic cotton, this shirt, before the shirt was made, the organic cotton processing took 20,000 liters of water, which is not sustainable. So, by hiding that fact and only highlighting the fact that the shirt is made using organic cotton, you are giving a false impression to the customers that you are a sustainable brand. Now, the simple answer why these companies are able to manipulate, the simple answer is because companies are legally able to get away with blatant misrepresentation. So just in case you file a suit against H&M, they'll come up with an explanation of that and get away with that. So that is a rather unfortunate thing that keeps on happening in the garment trade, something which should be curtailed. So at the end of the day, it looks like it is the customer's responsibility to actually do their investigation and find out whether the brands that they love, whether the brands that they consume, whether they are truly sustainable or not. If not, you stop buying from them. You don't believe everything that they say. So that's the crux of the matter. And if you look at the future of fashion sustainability, a great thing which has been initiated by European Union. In the European Union, the registration, evaluation, authorization and restriction of chemicals, REACH. This REACH regulations, they required in 2007 that clothing manufacturers and importers identified and quantified the chemicals used in their products. So it started from 2007, where all the shipments which were being sent from countries like India, Sri Lanka, China to European Union, with all the shipments, there was this document called MSDS, which was Material Safety Data Sheet. That had to accompany the shipment. With each style, this MSDS had to be accompanied. Now these MSDS, the Material Safety Data Sheet, that included the details of all the chemicals which were used in processing of the textile and the accessories which were used in making the garments. So from 2007 onwards, all the shipments which leave from countries like India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, etc. Are accompanied by this MSDS sheet, and the same has been applied to other industries also to seriously curb, check the usage of non-sustainable chemicals in production. Of course, after 2007, one major thing, one important thing that occurred related to sustainability was Copenhagen Fashion Summit that was held on May 3, 2012. That was world's largest summit on fashion sustainability, and more than 1,000 key stakeholders of the fashion industry, they gathered. That was one good indication that the industry was coming together, was taking cognizance of the fact that the existing methods are incorrect, not good for the environment and for earth, and therefore the entire industry should come together and discuss the issues, the problems, and come up with solutions. Now the students, they are suggested as a part of the self-study to definitely read about the Higg Index, the Global Change Award, the Sustainable Development Goals which have been prescribed by the United Nations and the Millennium Development Goals. These are some of those very important aspects which all the fashion professionals should be aware about, because knowledge about these is going to help you in two ways. First one is it's going to help you understand as to in what direction one should work so as to contribute to sustainability. And the second important consideration is that these concepts also represent a set of opportunities as a fashion entrepreneur. So only after understanding about these concepts and a little bit of deliberation, one will be able to understand what kind of opportunities can be capitalized upon. So with that, we come to the end of the section 1, and section 2 is about organic products. So we are going to discuss about organic products. Organic products are made from materials produced by organic agriculture, meaning to say that no synthetic material like insecticides and pesticides should be used, and only natural fertilizers to be used. Only then a material will be called organic. Organic products are such products which are made or cultivated organically. That's another definition. And in India, we have National Program for Organic Production, NPOP. It is an Indian certifying body which provides definition of organic products. They define the rules, they provide the definition, and they are also the certifying body. So if anyone in India wants to term its product as organic, it has to take the organic certification from NPOP. And NPOP is going to give you the certification only if you comply with the prescribed guidelines. Now these guidelines are prescribed by NPOP. Now, there are different types of organic product. There are organic food products, organic clothing products, organic personal care products, organic lifestyle, and there are many more. What we are concerned about more is organic clothing products. So organic clothing is clothing made from materials raised in or grown in compliance with organic agricultural standards, if we are talking about natural fibers coming from plants or from animals. So organic clothing is going to be mostly cotton, jute, silk, ramie or wool. And organic textiles, the term organic textiles includes both apparel and home textiles. The technical requirements in terms of certification and origin generally remain the same for organic clothing and organic textiles. So the rule is the same for clothing as well as textile when we talk about the certification of these products as organic.